Greensboro, Wallace. I have been to a lot of AA and High Point. That's probably we associate. I'm an alcoholic in Howard Sullivan. And it's a privilege for me to be here tonight at this meeting. It's a privilege to be anywhere that AA is congregating and I can be a part of it. And I owe you people my life, and I'll forever be grateful. It's unusual I can be in a room tonight with three of my biggest heroes in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's Tom, Wallace, and my sponsor, Bill. And it's good to be with you. I never have really known how to start one of these things or how to finish it. It seemed like I can do pretty good in the middle. I used to could tell a joke to kind of get livened up a little bit, but I got so old I can't remember any jokes. Bill and I come down here tonight. I don't know how many names popped up that we tried to remember and we couldn't come up with them. And I get over here and I get in this group and I'm hearing the same thing. So a lot of us are getting older in Alcoholics Anonymous and a lot of us are younger coming in. That's great. My sobriety date is March 11th, 1978. And I think I probably could, in very simply say that I was powerless over alcohol. I couldn't manage my own life, and no human power could relieve me of this dilemma I was in, but God could and would if He were sought. And over a period of time, I found that God, and I found a life that I never thought was possible for me to live. The home group in AA is the Southwest group, and that's on High Point Road in Greensboro, and has been for some time. As Wallace was talking, Starmount was my home group for a good number of years. And through the years, with a little bit of sobriety, I found it necessary to start giving a little more time to my family and started slacking up on my Saturday night meetings. And if I wasn't able to support that group 100%, then I needed another home group. And that's when I became a member of the Southwest group. Speaker meet on Monday nights. And we have a good group. If you're up that way, stop in and see us. I was born in I was born out in Guilford County. I was born in an old tobacco farm out there. Come up poor. We didn't notice so much at the time because if you could relate to me, everybody around us was in the same situation. We had enough to get along on. We raised a little tobacco. My dad worked at the old St. Leo's Hospital in Greensboro, and we managed to get along very well. Had very little that we wanted, but had everything we needed, and had a good life. I really believe that. In discussing the fourth step and in early sobriety, hearing other people talking about their fourth step and in their life in general, and hearing their stories, I thought there must have been something in my past back there that caused me to be like I was. And I searched, and then getting into a fourth step myself, I found that wasn't true. That I was given everything that I needed to be capable of going out in the world and become a productive citizen. But I had developed the disease of alcoholism, and all that was to change. I was taught a lot. I think the biggest thing I was taught then that helped me a lot, and something that bothered me over the years with my conduct and drinking the place it became, was the fact that I was taught values. And I knew the difference in right and wrong. And I knew what was good and I knew what was bad, and everything in my life had come directly opposite of anything I was ever taught. And growing up out there in the country and hunting and fishing and just, it was a good life. It really was. Had good parents, good loving parents. Was taken to church, carried the church. I become a part of that. How much of that I really took in, it's hard to say. But I did enjoy it, and it meant a lot to me in my younger years. I know that there's no alcoholism, no drinking period in my immediate family. I found out later that there was some alcoholism in my family, aunts and uncles in several different directions. But I'll tell you a story. My dad, according to my mother, had a problem with alcohol. This was long before I was born. And it caused him some problems. And his drinking caused him some problems. And he'd stop by the local bootlegger, old One-Armed Daniels, that lived up from us there. One Arm Daniels is the only person I ever knew that got caught and got a DUI for driving a mule in a wagon back to the Sumner community out of Greensboro on a Saturday afternoon. But his wife sold a little liquor, and he got a snootful up there, and he come home and he couldn't get in the back door, couldn't get up the steps back there. So he crawled or wandered on out into the yard in a swing that we had under a tree out there, and that's where he spent the night. And when he got well enough the next morning to come in the house, he told my mother, said, "Eula, anything that does me like that, I never intend on having anything to do with again." And to anybody's knowledge, that was the end of his drinking. Now, difference in alcoholism and what I consider him, I would do the same thing. I could come home and maybe I couldn't get up the steps. And maybe I would sleep in the car or out in the swing or somewhere. And I'd go in the house the next day and I'd make that same promise. Anything does me like that, it'll never happen again. And next Saturday night, I'd be right back out there in that swing again. And that was the story of my life over and over. It's going to be different next time. It was always going to be different. The insanity of this disease of alcoholism. I had a good case of it. Went through school and done very well. Never made anything but straight A's up through the 10th grade, second half of the 10th grade in high school. And was popular in school. I participated in sports, particularly football. Enjoyed everything about it. I was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde in the fact that I was voted the most popular boy in our senior class when we graduated from high school. And the reason for that was I'd be anything you want me to be. I could be with the nerds and get along fine. I could be with the guys out behind the furnace room drinking a little homebrew and smoking cigarettes and be just fine with them. And so that's how I became that. And that's what I tried to be the rest of my life, right down the middle. And working two sides of the street all the time, and that'll wear you out. I worked hard growing up. I knew ever since I can remember, was old enough to do anything. I've always had a job to do and respected to do it. But I respected my parents. My mother really was a disciplinarian in the house. She's the one who would chase you with a broom when you done something she didn't like. But my dad was a different kind of person. When he spoke, I knew to listen. He didn't have to tell me but one time to do anything, and I knew what was going to happen if I didn't do it. But he's a good man too. And went to school, and I was going to school. I was trying to play ball. I had a part-time job. I was trying to have a social life. I had tried to study, trying to do all these things. And maybe that time, maybe I was carrying a little more than a kid my age should have tried to carry. But in order to make a little extra money for myself, and so I could buy some things, I went to work. Well, I'd always worked on our tobacco and other people's too. We swapped around and everybody helped each other out and got paid like that. But went to work in this grocery store down on Randleman Road, and it was a busy place in that area of our lifetime. This was before chain stores that I know. I think there was an A&P uptown in Greensboro at that time. I guess that was about it. But they done a lot of business. They sold everything from horse feed to T-bone steak. You could get it all right there in one place. We even delivered groceries all in uptown Greensboro. And that was to make some extra money. And I noticed, by then I'm starting to venture out a little bit. I've drank a beer here and there. I've tasted a little wine. Don't remember anything about it that done anything particular for me. But when I went to work there, I noticed we had a good social life back there in the back room of that grocery store, especially on Friday and Saturday night. And these people coming home from work, they would stop in there and they pull out that jar, and they start pouring these little cups that, and they get to drinking that stuff. And they seemed like they was having the best time anybody ever. They were having a whole lot more fun than they were down there at that Rehoboth Methodist Church that I grew up in, I tell you that. And I wanted to know more about this, and that fascinated me. It really did. And they gave me a little cup of it, and I drank that, and of course nothing particular happened. But in the beginning, I think it was the fact that this was a group of people that I wanted to belong to and become a part of, and it fascinated me. It wasn't too long after that, they invited me back to drink a little more with them. And they tell these stories and these big lies, and they were flying planes and going on fishing trips and the auto races and ball games and just having what seemed to me like a great time. And it always seemed like that booze was a part of this great time that they was having. So there couldn't be anything wrong with that. I got enough in me one night. We had a jar of that white liquor. They was always drinking white liquor. And I got to loving that white liquor. A lot of people couldn't stand it. I loved it like a pig loves slop. I talk about white liquor quite a bit, and especially in my early years. And I really liked it, but I found out one thing real quick about white liquor. You need to go on and get where you want to be for a while before you start drinking. Your head stays pretty clear, but your legs won't move. And I did like it. But I got enough that night, and I started drinking. They had in a walk-in cooler, and I was working in the meat market that night. And I'm going back in that cooler, and I'm nipping on that thing, and nipping on it, and nipping on it. And, man, I got to feeling good. I felt exactly where I need to be, kind of like something that I needed. It just opened me up and put me in a place that I was comfortable. I was comfortable by myself, and I was a part of this thing. And I drank enough of it that night that I passed out. And they loaded me up in no piece of a car I had out back there, and I got home sometime during the night and went to work the next morning on Sunday. They opened at noon on Sundays, and I got there sometime before noon. And I'm sick, and I walk in the store, and Clyde said, "How you doing, kid?" And Clyde was one of my teachers and teaching me how to drink. And I said, "Clyde, I'm about to die." He said, "Well, go over there and get you a couple of those beers and drink them, and you'll feel better." So I did, and he said, No, he said, "Get those warm ones off the floor." He said, "That's what you really need for a hangover is warm beer." And Clyde said that's what to do, so I done it, and it's coming out every place it'll come out. But I got them down, and I did learn. I did start feeling a little bit better. And it's as bad as I felt, and as sick as I was that next day, I knew right then, the next time I get a chance to do that, I'm going to do the same thing again, because that was the top of the list. How it made me feel was the important thing. How sick I got was unimportant. I can put up with that to get that feeling that I had. And so that's what I pretty much set out to do for the rest of my drinking years. For a long time, it wasn't an everyday thing. It's when I could and when I had enough money, like a lot of us. And or you had some and you share it with me, or you had some and I'd steal it from you. But it wasn't an everyday thing. And after I graduated from high school, I married a girl that I had dated in school. We got married in the fall after we graduated from high school. After that spring, and the 6th of this month, we were married 56 years. So now I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of that time that we weren't together. One of us was gone, but it has worked out by the grace of God. It's worked out and been good for both of us. But I know the first time I brought a jug of that white liquor home and set it on the kitchen table, and she said, "I'm not having that." Her dad was an alcoholic. We buried him at 44 years old from this disease. And she was sick with this disease of alcoholism long before she ever met me. And she was determined that she wasn't going to have that in her house. And I convinced her that I wasn't like him. I was different. I was a social drinker, I guess is what I was trying to. And a lot of times I was keeping it down to a level, most of the time. And finally convinced her of that, and even convinced her to the point that later on that I'd even get her to take a little taste of it. But it didn't take long, because if she started feeling it, that was the end of it. I don't want no more of that. I'm beginning to feel it, like a lot of them, like all those non-alcoholic social drinkers, That's when I started. When I started feeling it, that's when I wanted to keep going. Once I lit that fire, I wanted to keep that thing burning. And I didn't understand that. Didn't understand it with her. Don't understand it with anybody else. But that's me. That's my alcoholism. And we did get married, and I started to work. And I started to work pretty much inside and confined for the first time that I'd done a lot of work, but I'd never been inside and cooped up. And I was having a hard time with that. And a company out the company, I went to work for a company. They bought a company out of Massachusetts, Whitney Engineering, and moved that to Greensboro. And I went to work there with them. And for the next couple of years, a part of my days was going to school. And I learned a trade there that supported me basically the rest of my life. But after a while, they weren't treating me right. They wasn't paying me enough. They didn't appreciate me enough. And I'm going somewhere else. So I completely got out of that for a while and started other jobs and got into some sales work and moved to Burlington, North Carolina. And I'm down there and I'm doing a good job. I'm always a fast starter, and a slow finisher. I really can go get it for a while, but it's not long that I start finding all these beer joints and meeting some people and some associates, and I'm learning then that I know these good calls to make and I know the bad ones to make, and I'll get those and the rest of them. And I started stopping at the beer joints earlier and earlier during the day. And I'd been to a sales meeting in Greensboro on a Saturday, drinking quite a bit of vodka and beer, and going home on Saturday night, somewhere around 8 or 9 o'clock, somewhere in that range, and I hit a car head-on down on the old Burlington Road. And I never knew I'd hit that car till I come to in the old Alamance County Jail down there on Sunday morning. And I knew so little bit about it that I had to meet the Highway Patrol on a Monday at their station to fill out some kind of accident report. And I felt that guilt and remorse. There again, this will never happen again. I'm through with the drinking. I don't know how long that lasted, but probably a couple of weeks, maybe less than that, I don't know. But I had to go right back to what I was doing to get me where I needed to be. But I lost that job and moved back to Greensboro, and I wasn't doing anything. And we bought a house in Burlington. Somehow or another, we bought another house in Greensboro. There I've got a house in Burlington, one in Greensboro. My wife done a good job of juggling things for a lot of years, I tell you that. There's no way we could have made it on my ability to do anything. But the company called me and said they were starting up something new, and they they knew of me and wanted to know I probably fit into their plans, but I was interested in the job. And I told them that, I'll think about it. I'm pretty tied up right now, but I did, and I went with them and went to work, and I spent the next 28 years with them, and done a good job for them more or less over the years, and conned them and done a lot of things that I don't know how in the world I ever got away with it. My drinking by this time is mostly every day. Not every day, but most every days I'd have something to drink. And if I had a chance, I'm gonna drink all. I'm gonna drink till I drink it all, and to the point of passing out. And I always wanted to be like my dad and other people I knew. I wanted to be a husband who could raise a family and be good to his family and do the things that you're supposed to do. Be a good citizen, but somehow or another something was different. And I didn't know what it was then, but it was alcoholism. And I would try so hard to be this person and trying to do the things that I needed to do. And I could go without drinking maybe for a couple of weeks, and then all of a sudden I go to the store to get a loaf of bread and run up on one of you guys, or I might decide to stop and get a beer, and bam, it's 2 days later when I get home and wonder what happened. And I would do these things over and over again. And I've got to stop this. It's going to be different. I can't, I don't need to be doing this all the time. But I couldn't change it because I was alcoholic and didn't realize it. And we had a little daughter born by this time also, and she's coming along, and she was, the pride and apple of my eye, but I just couldn't accept the responsibility that I should as being a parent. That accepting responsibility was always a problem of mine. The world was all wrong and I was all right, and most of you know what I'm talking about. And I won't take the credit for everything and the blame for nothing. If anything happened, it was your fault. It was not my fault. And living by that. And the lying had become necessary by this time. And to me, a practicing alcoholic has got to become a good liar. He's not going to survive long if he don't do that. Sometimes even popping up with a lie when the truth would have been better to tell. You just say, or I would just stay on edge, just ready with an answer all the time. And it's somebody else's fault, not mine. And the marriage rocking along, for the next through the 60s was about what you would expect from me. It's the same stories. It's the trouble at work, trouble with the police, trouble at home, trouble. Everything was trouble to me, and didn't realize what was causing the trouble in my life. In 1970, I decided that I need to get back out in the country. That was my problem. If I could get me back out there and get me a garden going and get me a few fruit trees and start mowing some grass and get me a couple of dogs, I'd be all right. And I finally convinced my wife that to do this, and with the understanding that I was going to have to do something about my drinking. And sure, that's no problem. We'll take care of that. Now, she meant not to drink, but I meant to slow down on my drinking. She didn't quite understand that. And we did, and we built a house in Jamestown. And we moved in there, and probably my wife said I was drunk the night we moved in. It's funny, I thought I stayed sober for about a week or so. But she said I was drunk the night we moved in. Things didn't get any better because I took me right on down there with it. And I think this is when my drinking had changed to the point that I don't know whether I was alcoholic, just like I got progressed just like it says. It started affecting me spiritually, mentally, and physically in that order, just like that. And I think by then I'm starting into that physical part of it more. And I'm doing okay at work. How, I don't know. I had some good people that worked for me and really looked after me. And I would make some of the darndest decisions you ever heard of in your life and somehow or another slip out of them. And through those years, most of them, I had a job that I could come and go pretty much as I pleased. It involved a lot of lies. I call in the morning, I can't get to work. I forgot to tell you Friday I've got to be in Raleigh this morning at 10 o'clock. So I'm going to go on down there and come to work later. And I go back to bed and then get up about noon and take me a couple of drinks and go on to work. And getting away with this stuff, just, I don't know how. By then I'm taking a little drink in the morning. I'm drinking during the day at times. A lot of people that I worked with were borderline alcoholics or alcoholics, and they were having one of them kept Orange Driver in our Coca-Cola dispenser, my old lift-top boxes, kept a bottle of Orange Driver. I never drank that stuff, but it looked kind of nasty to me. But he got to drinking that stuff one day, and he got up on a tall, big punch press that we had in here, probably about 25 foot up in the air. And he got drunker when he got up there, and we had to go up there and tie him off the rest of the day so he wouldn't fall off of there. But that's a lot of these come to people I work with. And a guy, excellent, smart person. He was just like me. He was a budding alcoholic. The same guy, his son shot him about 5 years ago. The son just couldn't stand him anymore. And things were pretty good, It seemed on the outside things were pretty good, but nobody knew what was going on inside. We were trying to go to church along with this time, and off and on, and really looking good on the outside. And my wife knows people didn't know what was going on in our home. By then, the big book talks about us seeking out the Lord companions, and that certainly was true with me and the people that I was associating with. And I found out, if you drink long enough, you'll become a Lord companion, and that's where I become. I had people that were really bad dudes telling me that I need to do something about my drinking, and not knowing when I was going to come home, if at all, and nobody could depend on me. I know my wife was I guess it was probably in about 1974, I guess. My wife was gone again, and I'm at home by myself, and it's a Sunday morning, and I get up sometime Sunday morning, and I go to the window, and I've got a bottle of vodka in my hand trying to get a drink down. And I look out across the pasture, down across the barn, and big old tears started rolling out of my eyes. And I'm saying, I guess this is the way it's going to be from now on, and I don't know what to do about it, and I'm scared. And I'm into a stage there the way I remember it and understand it, a stage that I hadn't been for before. If it had ever been any time in my life that I could have turned it around, turned back, medical reasons, whatever it may be, I doubt it, but they sure wasn't then. That's when I'm to the point when I get up in the morning, every fiber in my body hurts, and I know the only thing that's going to help that hurt is a drink of the same thing that got me in that place in the first place. And I'm on that merry-go-round and don't know what to do about it. By then, I picked up 2 more DUIs. I've had another wreck and another one at a traffic stop, and still hanging on to that job. Still not living the type of person that I need to be living, and I knew that, and that bothered me a whole lot. And my wife left what I figured for good in March of 1976, and I figured she probably was gone for good this time. Well, she wasn't. She came back, but I finally found out where she was at. You can't hide from us drunks, We can find you. But she was the best at finding somebody I ever seen in my life. Everywhere I went, she could find me. I'd like to get on my lawnmower and ride around the neighborhood. I like to start about 11 o'clock on a Friday, and I'd carry my bottle in that lawnmower, just spread and cheer, just stopping talking to people, especially my good friend Johnny down the street, and we usually ended up the rest of the night in his garage down there. Johnny drank almost like I did, but he got to where he was drinking more like I did, and Johnny finally got sober himself. He's passed away with a heart attack now. He moved to Winston-Salem and later on passed. And he and his wife separated along the way too. But she come and get me, and I'd have all my friends. She embarrassed me in front of my friends a lot, She didn't appreciate my friends. She come and sometimes just around me the house she'd run them off and just embarrass me to death. But she'd come and get me and she's wagging that finger in that mouth, just going, And these guys say, "Damn, no wonder you drink like you do." I said, "That woman is crazy." And she was crazy. I was making her crazy. This disease of alcoholism was making her crazy. She didn't know what to do either. But she was gone. And she finally came back in that late fall, and that was late 76, and then she left again. And then in the spring of 77, she came back home again. But something had happened to her while she was gone. And I didn't know what that was. I couldn't pull her strings anymore. She found out she wasn't responsible for my drinking. She found a program called Al-Anon. And someone in our family started to get well from this disease. And that started changing the game. That didn't mean I got sober, but it started changing it. That doesn't mean within itself that I ever got sober, but things are going to be different from then on. And she suggested I go to a program called Alcoholics Anonymous. Now, about all I knew about Alcoholics Anonymous was what I heard around the beer joints. A lot of us heard. So, the A&A's, you miss somebody, and the A&A's come and got him. Billy and I were talking on the way to places like Damascus Home. And I hear once in a while somebody who'd been down there or somebody who's gone down there. I didn't know what it was, but they talk about going down to Damascus Home or down to Butner or somewhere like that. And so I decided, well, I don't know nothing about this. So I'll give it a try. What it was an ultimatum: you go there or you go out. So I'll give it a shot. And I called AA and I asked them about meetings. Yeah, we got one tonight. It's a Wednesday night meeting, beginners group, first meeting I ever went to. So I went to that meeting and didn't know what was going on. Didn't really care what was going on. To tell you the truth, I was just coming there to make an appearance, and that was my first meeting. I found out later that my wife come up there to where that church was that night to make sure I was there. She saw my car, so that was a good deal, So I proceeded to go to AA off and on, fairly regular, as a matter of fact. from then on up until sometime in November of 1977. And I liked you people. I liked you a lot. I believed you. I believed what you were telling me. But what you were saying was you can't ever drink again. Now, I wasn't listening to what you were saying, how you do that. But basically, I didn't know you had, I wasn't paying attention to your steps or one day at a time or anything else. All I could hear was you cannot ever drink again. And that's hard for this alcoholic to take. You can't ever, what do? I can't do that. How do you do it? You can't have any fun anymore if you don't drink. What are you going to do? You can't have any fun. That was pardon my language, but my fun by this time was getting home if I could get there, getting to that recliner, and still drinking. And sometime before the night was over, either passing out and pissing in my britches or pissing in my britches and passing out. That's what fun had become to me. There was no fun in my life. It was nothing but tragedy and misery. But that's what I was seeing. And I was coming, and I'm sorry to say that I was coming to meetings sometimes drinking. I even got me a sponsor, the same one that became my first sponsor later on. His name was Rupert. And the same sponsor that sponsored Billy for a good number of years. And I went to a meeting at Dogwood on a Thursday night, and I was looking good, probably smelled a little vodka on me, but I went on up the front row looking good like I usually done. And I didn't know he was there. And I was 9 o'clock, I'm heading for the door, I don't want to listen to none of this stuff. And come here, boy. He said, why don't you either get in this program or get out? You're about to drive everybody crazy. And I went home from that meeting tonight, and I told my wife that Rupert had kicked me out of AA. And that's pretty much what I thought it was. And she let me know right quick, that ain't the only thing you're kicked out of, big boy. You're going to have to go. I've had all I can stand of you. And so I did, and I lived here and there. I lived with some friends, He drinks a little bit too much, but he's a good guy. Come on over and stay with us. And you pee in their closets and about set their houses on fire, and they find out real quick. You're not such a good old guy. You've probably got a problem. So I'm here and there and everywhere, and living in a motel for a while, sleeping in my car, sleeping in my office, and finally ended up in an apartment out on Market Street. And that's where I was when I got sober. By then at work, they told me to go home. And this was right after Christmas, the first of the year. To go home and get yourself straightened out, and when you do, come back and we'll talk. I don't know what that meant. I was fired or you come back to work. It really didn't matter. It really didn't matter at that time. And I did, and I pretty much closed myself off in that apartment. And I took that phone off the hook and started isolating. And that's where I was till the day that I took my last drink. And I don't know what the difference was in March the 11th of that year of 78 than any other day that I'd had, but something changed. And I called out to a God of mine. I'd lost everything that ever meant anything to me, and it should have been gone because I'd used it up. And probably that job was gone too, as far as I knew. But I called out to a God that I had nothing to do with for a lot of years. I guess I had become pretty much agnostic in the fact that, I know there's probably a higher power out there, but it don't have anything to do with me, and I have no relationship with it. It just exists. But I called out to this God and to please help me. And I had something happen that night that I never experienced before and haven't experienced since. And that was a calm and peace that come over me like I'd never experienced before. And I knew somehow that things were going to be okay. I didn't know how, but it's going to be okay. And I called this old sponsor the next morning. And I went to sleep and slept that night in a bed. I wasn't accustomed to sleeping in a bed. I liked the recliner, the couch, and the floor, just wherever I happened to end up. But I called him. He said, "You want me to come and get you?" And I said, "No, I think I can make it over there." So I did. I made it over to his house. My recovery facility was on the Hilltop Court right there off of High Point Road for the next 2 weeks. And it was tough. And he and his wife sat on me and cried with me and fed me that honey and Snicker bars and Coca-Colas, and gradually stopped shaking and started coming around. I don't necessarily suggest that for anyone else, but I know that was what was good for me. I needed that. I needed to shake that out. I needed the experience of that. Someone told me one time shaking out a drunk is kind of like a lady having a natural childbirth. It's hard to get up, hard to come through it, but you got a wide awake baby when you do. And I think that's kind of kind of the way I was. And then started coming to AA and coming with it with an attitude. I want what you people had. And you know, March 11th is my sobriety birthday, and I think of that probably the most important day of my life. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's that time I went to the first time on that Wednesday night, and I found out there's a group of people that were staying sober. And maybe if I give it a try, I can go back and get what those people had. And so maybe that was finding this program, this fellowship in the beginning. And to become a fellowship for me, and become involved in Alcoholics Anonymous and becoming a part of it. And I was pushed in that direction. I was going on 12-step calls early with the people around me. They were all doing a lot of that time. And learned a lot from that, getting to see that shape that people were in, and being able to, what little bit we could to help them, get them on some kind of road to recovery if they were willing to do it. And I always think that if you haven't done this, I think someone has missed a vital part. It was a vital part for me. When you go to call on a drunk and he's desperate and he's sick, sitting there, and his wife's over in the other chair, she's scared to death, and he's got a couple little dirty kids over on the side, and this old guy decides to get this program. And you see him come around here, and you see him start getting a smile on his face, and he starts bringing that wife and little kids around. They all get cleaned up, and you see them all smiling and happy. You get to see the grace of God working right before your eyes, and that meant a lot to me. It still does today. I love to see people come into this fellowship and get sober. I get to see it happening. And if I'm not around these rooms, I don't get to see it happening. I need to stay right in the middle of this Alcoholics Anonymous the whole time. Started out, setting up. Well, I never could quite understand what cleaning ashtrays and making coffee had to do with staying sober. Till after a while, it finally dawned on me. I'm doing something that's some purpose to it. I'm being a part of this group, and they're letting me be a part of it, and I'm appreciative for it. Finally I was sober long enough to get up here and read something, and then finally sober long enough to start chairing a meeting. I remember the first meeting I ever chaired was the First Presbyterian Church, Fisher Park group, big group, probably the biggest group in Greensboro when it was at its peak. And I know I come up to me. I smoked a cigarette with them old holders about that long, She had her hair up in a bun on top, and she was a tough old lady. And I've been talking to Sam and a couple of more, and we might let you chair this meeting. And meetings then were 3 months. A lot of the meetings were 3 months. We chaired them for 3 months at a time. But I got to check with them first and let you know. And I went home and told my wife I was excited about that. It looks like I'm gonna get to chair a meeting. I'm doing this thing. Now, I'm not doing much with steps or anything else, but I'm here and I'm excited, and I want what you have. And they let me chair that meeting. Now probably had asked 20 people, and all of them turned her down. But to me, it was an exciting part of sobriety to be able to contribute something like that, and then getting on into the program and learning what it's all about, and getting into the steps. I wasn't brought along in the steps. I don't know that the steps were pushed along that hard when I got sober or not. A lot of things in AA I think are a little better now. I just think there's some things in AA that are not too good. We're trying to be too many things to too many people sometimes. That's my opinion. And I worry about that a little bit sometimes. But I did, and you go to step meetings and you're around people in AA, and you get to wondering, I want some of this too. I wonder what this is all about. Now, I hear a lot of people, and Rupert was a great sponsor, don't get me wrong. He was a great sponsor. He could bring you along this thing long enough to get you on your feet to where you could go with it. And I hear people talk, me and my sponsor go and read the big book on Wednesday nights from 8 to 9 every week. That's fine. That's great. I understand that. But I can imagine me calling Rupert. Rupert, can I come over to your house and read the big book with me? He said, can't you read? So if you had, that's what he would say. And, if you have, read it, if you have any problems, call me. I'll talk about it. And that's about the end of it. But I did get involved in these steps, and that's when my life really started changing. I started learning something about Howard and what it was all about. And I found out what my problem was right there in that fourth step, and that problem was me. And when I start doing something about me, I can start living a better life, and I can start doing something about this problem. And carrying it on from there. And just the joy of sobriety. I think sometimes maybe I get off on the edge a little bit that it's makes the thing sound like it is a simple program, very simple. I couldn't have got it if it hadn't been simple. But I don't want to complicate it, and but sometimes maybe I think make it sound a little bit too easy. But there's a lot of ups and downs, a lot of trials and tribulations, a lot of decision making, a lot of heartache, buried some people, a lot of dissatisfaction through the years of sobriety. But I know what I need to do, and I know where I need to be, and I know my answers in this fellowship, and it's in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I don't want to add anything to it for me or take anything away from it. All my solutions are right there if I only follow directions. And my life has turned around completely in 180 degrees. I just turned 75 years old last month, and I'm kind of starting to get in the twilight of my years now, and I know that. And this fellowship and this program and my God become more important to me every day that I'm sober. And it means more to me. Every day is a day that's been given to me through you people in Alcoholics Anonymous and the God that you introduced me to. And, a guy that passed away not too long in Greensboro always ended his talks, and I kind of like it that way. It's Stick Wallace. And Stick used to always say that I'm doing the best I can do. And I may not be as good as I want to be. I might not be as good as I ought to be. But I'm a whole lot better than I used to be. And Wallace, thank you for asking me to come down. Thank all of you.